Hello and welcome to the latest podcast of Countryside here on Manx Radio, brought to you by NFU Mutual, and a varied programme ahead of us, John, to start the new series of Countryside.
It really was. It's strange, Sam, what inspires us to seek our subjects. We've been labouring home this week trying to gather sheep without a sheepdog, and I think that's what inspired me to go and talk to Kate Brummett, who breeds sheepdogs and actually runs them in sheepdog trials, and it was very interesting talking to her. She's so enthusiastic and so well versed in training sheepdogs.
And anyone who's worked on farms or lived on farms for years gone by will know how enthusiastic sheepdogs can be. They may not necessarily know what they're doing, or the owner.
No. Oh dear Sam, they will lead you a merry dance sometimes, but it pays to have them well trained. You know, a good dog is worth his or her weight in gold. They really are.
And also, you've been hidden away down the south.
Yeah, it's amazing, Simon. You walk through the streets of a town time and time again. You know all the front doors, all the front steps. What you don't know, it's what's in behind. And some of them have really amazing gardens in there. Often they're sheltered from the wind. They're a sun trap, and they're raising all kinds of things in there. And, it's a pity they can't be seen, but maybe that's the real beauty of it. We don't know they're there.
Yeah, and I suppose people are realising with most towns and villages sort of open up their gardens now and being sort of proud of them, where before they did keep that more privacy.
Yeah, but don't you think, Simon, with the advent now of garden centres and things like that, the people are more gardening minded, and places that wouldn't normally host a garden, it's quite, fairly easy to adapt. I would say that because I need to get a tractor in to do mine.
They must have too much time on their hands, I would say. Well, it's that time of year when a lot of people are getting the fishing rods out during the summer, whether it be in the reservoirs, rivers, and particularly around the coasts of the Isle of Man. And I popped along to speak to Chris Culshaw from the Ramsey Angling Club about their forthcoming Ramsey Angling Festival, which is on the 8th to the 12th of July, so a big one, and it attracts a lot of people from away.
I wouldn't have the right temperament to be an angler or a fisherman. So I couldn't sit there waiting for him. I'd want to go and get him.
Just give you a net or something. But it's something I think you could do when you're older, John.
Yes, well, maybe when I retire and when I can't get about as much, maybe I will. But Simon, you've been looking at a lovely, lovely part of the island, not far from where you are, on the Ayres. It's a very special part of the island, isn't it?
It certainly is, and I've often took it in sections. I've never walked the whole thing at once, but from our house right to the Len, then you've got Smale, Blue Point, and then Smale, and Rue Point is the part of it's there now, and then you get down to Ballygenny and then to the Point of Ayre itself, and there's little stages there you can walk, and there is some fascinating wildlife. And I spoke to Louise Sampson from DEFA, who's an expert in that sort of field out there, and all the different areas have got so much different birds in them that are nesting, particularly at this time of year, and a bit of concern with not just people disturbing the nests, but other wildlife and predators that are around there. So.
But was it close enough to where you grew up, Simon, for you to walk on the Ayres as a boy and become familiar with it at that stage?
Oh gosh, yeah, and we were always told off. Oh, the birds are nesting out there, keep away from there, So
really?
we always bred into us. Yeah.
Was it really?
Yeah.
And did you follow birds' nests? Did you find them nesting?
No. Yes, we did do the ones that you stumbled on them by accident sometimes on the beach because they were that camouflaged in the stone. But there was no fencing off, and I think people, unless you knew the area and you knew what was going on around at that time.
But that sounds rather like a hill, Simon. You have to know the area. If you grew up with it, you would know the area. Whereas if I came from somewhere like St John's, I wouldn't necessarily know what the Ayres meant.
Well, just sit back and enjoy this week's Countryside.
Here. I went to Castletown to discover the hidden gardens of Castletown, a feature of any town that we usually don't see.
My name's Pam Corkish and I'm the coordinator this time round of the Hidden Gardens of Castletown.
Is this an annual event?
Biannual, every other year. Next one will be 2017.
And how many gardens are participating this time?
We've got 18 plus our sponsor, Friends Provident International.
18 gardens?
18, yes.
Are they all within the town of Castletown?
They are, yes, all within walking distance of the square.
Are people surprised when they find that there are hidden gardens behind what they are which is a street scene to them, essentially.
Yes, because you walk around the town and you're at the shops, but you don't realise what's behind. So many frontages are straight onto the road, and you might just see a door at the side, not realise that there's quite a big area behind.
What about the participants then? Are they anxious to show people their gardens, or are they a bit reticent?
A bit of both, I think. A lot of people spend a lot of time on their garden, and I think with just a little bit of encouragement, they love showing up their garden off, and we're so grateful to them for doing that.
How do you go about organising? Now, we've got quite a crowd here at your table in the square. Is it a job to organise it?
It's every other year, so we have 2 years to do it, but yes, there's a bit of work involved, but it's a labour of love.
And what goes on here at the table on this lovely sunny afternoon?
Well, we're selling programmes here. We've got some of our committee and some helpers of our membership and some just friends and family. It's Castletown Heritage, Hidden Gardens of Castletown.
Proud of the town?
Oh, definitely, yes. Love it.
Anne Davis, who would have thought walking down the streets of Castletown, there's a beautiful little arbour like you've got there. How did you design it?
When I moved in, there was already a cherry tree, which was lovely, and there were a couple of apple trees, and there was a bigger lawn. Well, I'm not really a lawn person, and I like plants. So I started from there over a few years, and it's only a small patch, but I put little paths in, and it's a spring garden, really. I have lots of bulbs, tulips and daffodils, and people have given me bluebells, which I love bluebells, and it's just developed, and I'm at a gardening age, John.
But it is so unpretentious, it's so natural, and you really are amazed when you come through the gate to see what opens up in front of you.
Thank you. I fight the slugs, I have to admit, and I don't like killing slugs, so I can't put salt down, it upsets me. So what I do is occasionally I put beer down so they die happily.
Does it take a lot of maintenance then?
I'm someone that hasn't got a lot of time at the moment. So this year, I think it's because it's been so cold that not a lot has come out. I would think in another month it'll be a lot better, but I tend to put perennials in and bulbs that come up all the time, and then I add things to it. I add annuals. I like ferns and I like grasses, the way they move.
Do you use the garden then as somewhere where you can just escape to sometimes?
Yes, it's lovely for a cup of tea when I have time, or even a glass of red wine occasionally.
Captain Jack Ronan, we're standing here in a beautifully laid out garden. It's so well designed, not a lot of space, but you've got so much in it.
I don't know, it just happened. Like Peel, it just happened.
You were a sea captain, a master mariner,
Yeah.
and now you're spending your time in your garden. Is this a nice relaxation from the arduous sea journeys you made once?
It was my therapy. Yeah, I was commuting with nature, I suppose, but this went back to school days and wartime. We had a headmaster who was great on gardening. His name was Wilfred Kelly. We all had a little plot, Russian Four Road School, and that's where I picked up my gardening. It was something I always wanted in my life, and when I got this place of my own, just made the back this garden. That's how it all evolved.
There is so much that's so carefully laid out.
Commencing at the top and working down, I suppose, spuds, lettuce, a few carrots, radish, cauliflower. I have to admit that this is now done by my daughter's partner. He's from Wallasey, and he has an allotment in Wallasey, and he's just carried it on over here. And we got a bed of Sweet William. He'd only allow himself one little bits of flowers, and he's allowed me one bed of Sweet William. But there'll be another one of dahlias coming along after, that's beside it. That there was so wild at me, at that area there, I called it the jungle. He's tamed it.
Is there something special about eating what you've grown yourself?
Oh, absolutely. Taste you can't beat, as you would well know. Parsley too. I got that from my mother. She was a great parsley one. She reckoned there was as much good in a sprig of parsley as what there was in half a dozen oranges.
Really?
More vitamin, you know. My mother was from Craignish.
Thanks for letting us see your garden.
Well,
it's immaculate, and I think when I go home, we'll start to tidy ours up a bit.
Thank you for calling and seeing it.
Well, there we were discovering some of the hidden gems of Castletown, the gardens behind people's houses that the walker doesn't often see.
Well, fishing or angling, whatever you want to call it, is a wonderful pastime here in the Isle of Man and very popular for people coming to the Isle of Man to participate in our rivers, around our seas and also in the reservoirs. Well, in July is the Ramsey Angling Festival. To find out more about the event, I talked to Chris Culshaw from Ramsey Angling Club.
This year it's looking like the north of the island at the moment, like the Point West and Manx Match. Depending on the weather, of course, we might have to go into Ramsey for a comp, but the majority at the moment fishing is good on the point, so that's where we're looking at the moment. And we're lucky on the island because you can swap from one coast to another within quarter of an hour. You get to one venue from another.
And that'll all be weather will affect the type of fishing as well, because obviously you'll have a good idea of the tides.
Well, on the west coast, if you get rough weather, you're going to bring weed in,
right?
And you just can't. It's unfishable. So we've got to look at the weather first.
Well, Andrew Dugdale, you've been involved in it quite a few years as well. Do you take part?
Yes, I've been lucky enough to win it the last 2 years. I've been fishing from an early age. I've fished Ramsey Angling Week since a junior, since I started really 30 years ago. I've only been involved in the running of it the last 2 or 3 years. It's been a bit of an eye-opener how much work actually goes into running the event, and how much pressure there is on the organisers trying to pick the right tides, pick the right venues, make sure all the logistics are in place for bringing people over, package deals and all the rest of it that goes with it.
A lot of people come from away to take part in it?
This year we have 20 booked in at the moment to come over. Previous years we've had anything up to 30 or 40 from the UK, ranging from people who fish international level, fish for England, fish for Wales, fish for Scotland in the World Championships. So it's quite a high quality of angler comes over for it.
And you've won it, you say, 2 years. I mean, what's the secret of winning it? How is it judged? Is it over the 4 days? I mean, is it the biggest fish? Or
we work it as what we call a catch and release system, where we catch the fish, we measure them, we get points for the length of the fish, and then we release them, and it's marked on a card, and it's the person who's got the longest length by the end of the day. We also have heaviest fish pools, so if you don't catch as many fish as someone else, you've still got a chance of winning a prize because you can catch the heaviest fish or the longest fish. We also, this year, we've got a prize for the most species caught. You win a rod, a £200 rod, kindly donated by Julian Shambrick from Any Fish Anywhere.
Do the locals have an advantage, though, knowing the water?
Oh, you locals always have got advantage. Even when the boys go across, fish the comps, they know. You always watch the local, what he does, don't you?
Yeah.
You know, they're fishing that all the time, them venues all year.
Can you fish with anything you want? I mean, can you throw a spinner in, a float?
No, it's only bottom fishing.
Right, with bait.
There's no spinning allowed because, say you got 50, 60 anglers one after another. If you're spinning, you could bring somebody in,
right.
And they won't be very happy.
Yeah, it's what we call bottom fishing. We use 2 baited hooks. The main bait's got to be sand eels and mackerel this year, I expect. I'd say bottom fishing only. No feathering, no spinning, no float fishing.
But we're 30 years this year doing the competition. Luckily, the tourist board do sponsor us. You know, we've got to thank the tourist board special events for supporting us, or it wouldn't happen. They sponsor the top 10 prizes, which from £1,000 down to £50.
What details can they contact you on?
The best one is 300 173. I've always got my phone in my pocket. We've got a website and we've got a Facebook site, haven't we, Andrew?
Yeah, the website is www.ramseyanglingclub.co.uk, and we have a Facebook group which is just purely Ramsey Angling Club. Just ask to join it. Lots of information on there, a few threads on what's the best way to fish it, bait to use, etc. You can download entry forms from both of them places.
If you get them down to me at £60 this year, because the money for the zone prices have gone up this year, so we tried to put the money up on them. So if you get them down to me, Park Hill, Coburg Road, Ramsey, IM8 3EH, just drop a check in with your name and I'll see to everything.
Sounds like a very universal competition, and good luck to one and all enter it.
Yeah, I would just like to say we would like to see a bit more support from the locals this year. Maybe it's kind of fell out of favour a little bit over the last couple of years, and we do need the support from locals to be able to keep this event going. The visitors support it really well. Unfortunately, locals don't seem to support it as much as they used to, so we'd love to see a few more locals fish it this year.
Ever done any fishing, Simon?
Yes, I have. Out in the boat quite a bit in the days gone by. A little bit in the river.
So which do you prefer, the freshwater or out on the boat?
I think the the boat is nice and peaceful. You can escape from most things, can't you?
And what about, do you put them back in again or do you bring them home?
Oh, it depends. If there's only one or two, I'm not a big fish eater, but not many cod to be caught. Let me tell you that.
Well, I would be if I got the chance. I love fish, and I've always said, Simon, when the Solway harvester went down, I would never ever complain about the price of fish again. No. It's a pretty dramatic occupation.
Yeah, if I catch one, I'll bring you one.
That'll be fine, Simon.
Manx Radio's Countryside is brought to you by NFU Mutual.
Well, I think a debate goes on amongst the sheep farmers particularly of the Isle of Man, as to whether you have a quad or whether you have a sheepdog. I'm a dog man myself. I like the friendliness of a dog, the company that he brings or she brings, and so I went to talk to Kate Brummett. Kate is one of our young sheepdog handlers, very, very interested in the job along with her husband John, and they are hosting the International Sheepdog Trials at Bollackalingen. Kate will tell us a little bit more about that later on. But I asked Kate what really got her interested in breeding sheepdogs.
When I met John, John has been mad about sheepdogs his entire life, I think. He's big into his breeding programmes and following the dogs of the generation, if you like, where they have successes, the international champions or world champions, and what they can bring, what qualities they can bring to today's work.
So are you into breeding sheepdogs now?
Yes. We have a couple of litters in a year and we try and mix the different bloodlines from either England or Scotland and trying to get a dog that we want.
When you breed the dog, then now you've got the pup. At what age can you start to train a pup?
It depends on them. Some of them aren't interested at all until they get to maybe 6 months, 7 months. They're not interested in sheep, they're not really bothered. We've just brought one in from Ireland actually. He's in the UK with a friend of ours who does some training, and he's 5 months old and he's what they class as part trained. So it entirely depends on the dog.
How do you set out about training a dog?
Start off with just put them in the field, let them have a look, let them see the sheep. A friend of ours actually, she's a shepherdess in Scotland, she said that the best thing for them to experience, in her opinion, is a single sheep run off on its own, because they give off that fear and it excites the dog. And then from there, you go on. It's not my area of expertise as such. John could probably tell you more. But then you start to get them so that they're chasing, and then they'll start to balance with you like a clock face, so that whichever way you go, they'll go the opposite way to always keep the sheep in the middle.
How do you get them used to the commands?
Repetition. So when they're going one way around the sheep, you give them whichever command, maybe away or come by or left or right or whatever you're going to use. They'll start to pick up, oh, when I go this way, you say that thing, and I'm going to go that way.
Do you have to give a dog a name? Does he or she have to have a name?
I think so. I think it's important, especially when you've got more than one, to identify which is which.
And they will answer to their names?
Yes. Yeah, all of ours know the names.
What about the first time you ever run them in a sheepdog trial? Is that a bit nerve-wracking?
I'll tell you after the trial, because my new dog, it's the first time I'm going to run here, and it's a big trial, I think, to be entering into, and it's in front of a lot of people who are really noted in the sheepdog world, so I am quite nervous.
And they'll be very, very critical themselves. They'll have good dogs and have good runs.
Oh, yeah. I mean, some of them are at world level and they compete at world level in the world. Last year in the World Sheepdog Trial, a lot of them will have been there and been in attendance. So for me to start out at this trial is in the deep end, if you like.
You say on a world scale. Which countries do you see competing in sheepdog trials?
America, South Africa, Germany, Sweden, Finland. There's a lot within Europe that are very into the sheepdog trials, but America is the biggest one. They have a championship called the Bluegrass Championship, which I think the prize money stretches into the hundreds of thousands.
And do they have different requirements of a dog than we would have maybe here in the Isle of Man or in the British Isles?
On the general terms, probably not, but maybe the different terrains. So like, for example, we maybe need more hilly dogs within the United Kingdom, especially in Scotland. A lot of them are required to work long distance on big hills, whereas in America, depending on where they are, it might be more desert, open land. So same skills, but different terrain, I guess.
And the bond then between the handler and the dog, how do you build that up?
Just time. They have to be with you all the time. And the more you work them, the more they'll become your dog. I mean, my two good dogs, my two trial dogs, won't listen to John at all. They just... The old dog will just go home if he thinks that I'm not there. And he's just like, oh, I'm not listening to John.
You're promoting these international trials now. You've done this before.
Yes, this is the 3rd year that we'll have held the trial on the Isle of Man.
Has it been a success each year?
I think so, and I'd like to think that the people that come over think it's a success. We've got a lot of new faces coming this year. Unfortunately, we've had a couple of people that can't come because Skipton Dog Sales is on the same weekend, and within the sheepdog world, a lot of people earn their income from buying, selling, training dogs, and obviously they need to be there.
How many handlers do you expect to compete in the forthcoming trials?
We've got about 90 entries, but obviously if people can't make it for whatever reason, we'd be happy if 80 came.
80 handlers. And tell us where it's going to be held, Kate.
Silly Moose in Ramsey. There's the campsite and everything there. It's a great facility, I think, that they've really developed.
Which many people will know as Bollicalingen.
Yeah.
And when is this going to take place?
The 3rd to the 5th of July. It'll start roughly around 8 o'clock in the morning and will go on till 5, 6 o'clock at night, with the handlers running 1 dog per day, because a lot of them will enter 2 dogs.
Kate Brummett, very, very enthusiastic about the event that's really taking hold in the Isle of Man, International Sheepdog Trials, with, as she said, handlers from all over the world.
They haven't found any of them guilty yet.
Not yet.
Hey?
Not yet.
They're wonderful to watch, a good handler and a good dog, though, isn't it?
Oh, Simon, you couldn't. We've just got a new pup, and I've been asking Kate, for some tips on how to start training them, because it really is worth a good dog is worth its weight in gold.
Yeah, and it's something that has been adapted as years have gone by, wasn't it? You used to get the odd sheepdog that we had that was enthusiastic, but
I've had some of those, Simon. Yes.
And you're often home with the sheep in the pen on your own, and the sheep dog coming home about 2 hours later.
Either that, Simon, or he's gone home an hour ahead of you.
Yes, that's the worst thing. But all in all, it's a wonderful skill to watch.
It really is.
If you haven't ever seen it, go and watch the sheepdog.
It is well worth watching. Yeah.
Well, I took a trip to the Ayres down Smale Beach to talk to Louise Sanson from DEFA about the time of year, so busy for birds nesting at the Point of Ayres, Smale and all around that west coast, in particular on the Isle of Man. And she mentioned about 1 or 2 problems they've been having on the Ayres.
We have had a few incidences, particularly one up at the point where the Arctic terns are nesting. They're incredibly vulnerable up there because it is a really busy site. Lots of people like to go up there and have a look at the most northerly point on the island and have a look across to Scotland. But unfortunately this conflicts with the nesting birds up there, but we have got them fenced off. So long as people avoid the fenced areas, there aren't any issues. But unfortunately, during TT week, it was incredibly busy, and people do like to take photographs of the terns dive bombing them, and this is a really bad idea. If the terns are dive bombing you, you're too close and you should move away.
But the humans aren't the only predators that are affecting things at the moment.
Unfortunately, in the past 2 days, we've discovered that longtails are up there eating the eggs, and we had this problem last year and they absolutely decimated the colony last year, and we only managed to fledge one Arctic tern from 30 pairs, which is absolutely awful. In the past 2 days we've lost 10 nests, 10 clutches of eggs to longtails, and we've got loads of precautions in place to try and eradicate them and protect the Arctic terns, but unfortunately the longtails are still breaking through and taking the eggs. So we're sort of trying to up our game and eradicate them, but it's tough because there's no real evidence of longtail activity up there. So yeah, it's a difficult one, and with it being public site as well, it's difficult to manage.
We're here in the Smale area, though, and is this home to, I know it's not that far from the Point of Ayres, but is it home to a different type of breeding birds in the island?
We've got little terns on the beach here at Smale and Rue Point, and there's about 50 pairs currently nesting, and again they were all doing really, really well up until about 3 or 4 days ago, and now we've started getting hedgehog predation on these nests here, which again is a big issue, and we did a lot of work earlier in the year to try and reduce the hedgehog numbers by taking them away. We didn't kill any, we just moved them further south so that they weren't such an issue up here. But unfortunately, the same problem has happened again. They are due to hatch this week, so fingers crossed they will all hatch out before the hedgehog goes on its next rampage. So hopefully we'll see good numbers of little terns fledging this year.
On the good side of things, though, it really is a fascinating area. If people are into ornithology or just people who enjoy nature, isn't it? For there's so many varieties of different birds around this. So is it a small area in comparison to other places?
I think it's 672 hectares, so it's quite a large area. It spreads almost up to the point from here to Rue Point. And you've got the beaches, the shingle beaches, and obviously the dunes and the heathland. And because it's got such a range of habitats, we've got a fantastic selection of wildlife here. And on the heath, we've got the curlews. We've got good numbers of curlews, which are currently all got chicks. So the chicks are very vulnerable during that time. They're on the ground for at least 4 weeks before they can fly. And they just wander around feeding. We've also got oyster catchers nesting on the heath, skylarks, some meadow pipits. We did have some lapwings as well. So, yeah, it is a fantastic place to come to and see all the variety of wildlife. The pyramidal orchids in the dunes are just beginning to come out, and we've also got the scarce crimson and gold moth on the wing at the moment, which
right,
is
you said scarce.
Yeah, particular rarity for the whole of the British Isles. It's only found here on the Isle of Man at the Ayres, and in a couple of locations in Ireland.
Wow, so it's just, there's always something nice, and it's nice to have that little bit of nature, I suppose, that other places don't have.
Yeah, it is, because it's such specialised habitats, and the habitats that we've got here are very much restricted. If you think of the area of sand dunes, for example, that you've got around the whole of the British Isles, it's a very restricted habitat, so all the species that live in those areas are usually pretty rare and are quite often categorised as nationally scarce. So we do have a lot of rare, particularly invertebrates here.
I noticed the signs there about the dogs on leads and stuff, because I suppose that the dogs will shift the birds as well. Not on purpose.
No. It is incredibly popular with dog walkers, and it's fantastic to see them up here outside the bird nesting season. We really want people to enjoy this site, but during the bird nesting season, which is the 1st of April to the 31st of July, dogs must be on leads on the nature reserve, and that includes the beach and the heathland at the back, and there are bylaws in place to enforce that rule. So if dogs are off the lead, potentially they could chase after chicks, eat eggs, it can be a problem.
Louise Sampson from DEFA telling me all about the beauty of the Ayres and the rarity of some of the birds and moths and plants that are around that area, and the problems that they've got trying to keep the eggs and keep them breeding. Yes.
Yeah, it's a pity, Simon, that the looking after of that sort of part of the environment is down now to officials, who do it as a job. I remember we did that as kids going to school. We had charts on the wall in the classroom where we recorded all the birds' nests we knew, and right through till the birds hatched and flew. And we were deeply interested in it, and nobody would dare harm a bird's nest.
No,
it was.
You left them, didn't you?
Oh, it was an unwritten rule, but it was sacred almost.
Yeah, gentleman's agreement, wasn't it?
It was, Simon.
Manx Radio's Countryside is brought to you by NFU Mutual.
Well, there we are. That was this week's Countryside for you. I hope you enjoyed the selection that we had for you this week, and we'll be back next week with another Countryside brought to you by NFU Mutual.